Hello, I'm Peter Devaney from Creative Leap, and I'm going to be talking in this presentation about toTotara Social. It's about three quarters of an hour long, and I guess the first thing to ask is what is toTotara Social? It is an enterprise social learning network. And I've put the learning in brackets there for reasons that I'll come on to a little later on, because we'll see that that distinction is a little bit fuzzy. I'm going to deal with two things in this presentation. First of all, what is it and how does it work? So I'm going to walk through some of the features and the benefits of the product. I also want to talk a little bit about how it fits into the learning and social ecosystems that we have in organisations. One of the observations that people make when I talk to them about this is they say, well, you know, we've got all sorts of platforms out there. We've got LinkedIn, we've got Facebook, all of these things screaming notifications at us and demanding our attention. Are we not just adding to that digital noise, that platform fatigue, if you like, if we take another one on? So I want to address some of the facilities in toTotara Social that will help us drop it snugly, if you like, within those environments. First of all, what is it and what does it do? toTotara Social connects people, content and conversations across and within organisations. So as we'll see in a moment, it will allow our group of our population, if you like, to connect with each other and to communicate with each other and to share with each other, to share files, to share status updates, to share blogs and forums and so forth. It will also allow us to create communities of knowledge around particular subject areas or learning topics or projects or activities. So we can group our users or those users that are interested in these things together. And putting those two together, I guess, it will also support collaboration within these communities. So we'll see how we can co-create material around particular topics, or get people talking about particular topics, or share files relating to particular topics, and so on. A few notes before we start. toTotara Social is based on Mahara. Mahara, if you don't know, if you've not used it, is a portfolio product that's been around for about 10 years now. And toTotara Social relates to toTotara LMS in much the same way that Mahara relates to Moodle. Now that said, I'm not assuming any prior knowledge of any of those products. Though if you have used Mahara, you'll probably see some familiar features here. There's absolutely no requirement for you to have done so, or to be a Moodle user, or to be a toTotara LMS user. toTotara Social is a standalone product, and all of the things, with one exception that I'm about to describe, are available to you whether you use toTotara LMS or not. How do we learn? You probably may well be familiar with the 70-20-10 model, which very roughly states that we learn when we learn in the organisation or in the workplace. We learn 10% of what we know at informal training events, 20% through coaching and support, but 70% through actually doing the tasks relating to the topic that we are learning, and in particular stretching ourselves across challenging assignments in those tasks. It's a bit of a rule of thumb, and obviously there are interconnections between those things, but where toTotara Social sits in there is that it's very much about supporting the latter two of those activities. So it will allow us to coach and also to support the actual work itself, and hence those brackets in the title at the beginning around learning, because there's no requirement for the things that we do to be based solely on training. It's also very useful for, say, project work, connecting people around any topic, whether it's a training topic or not. I'm going to introduce a little example out of which we can build some use cases. I've contrived this from some of the questions that have been asked of me when I've spoken about Totara Social and some of the things that sites I've worked on work. So it's a as I say, a contrivance of various things, but I hope it's simple, and I hope there is a relation there between this and what you see in your own organisation. But very broadly, let's say we run a chain of restaurants. We'll have 1,000 odd staff, 30 branches spread across 5 regions. So we've got a geographical distribution there that we want to connect people across. I'm going to say that we have a 6-month training program, and as you would imagine, we've got things like menu preparation, customer service, equipment maintenance. And we're going to say the staff could be at any stage of the program. So they're not moving through in structured cohorts. They will join as they join the organisation and move through at their own pace. So in terms of pacing their access to these things, we need to see that Totara Social can actually do that. But of course, as with any organisation, there's lots of other stuff going on. We might be developing new products, or opening new branches, or all sorts of things and activities that any organisation undertakes. So basically, as I say, lots of stuff going on. Okay, so let's turn to the product itself. Okay, so I am going to look at it first from a user's point of view. I'm imagining that I've just joined the organisation. I'm Eric. I've logged onto the platform, and this is what I see. Now, the first thing to say about the screen is that it is configurable or designable to pretty much any format you like. So we have the same theming options in Totara Social that we have in Moodle or in Totara LMS. And therefore we can do things like add logos or change the colour scheme or change the shape or appearance of all of the objects on the screen. What we're looking at the moment is the out-of-the-box theme, which is it's a fairly plain sort of black and white and blue colour scheme there. The other thing I can do is redesign this home page. So Eric can visit the pages, and he can let's go to my pages. Somewhere down there is my home page, and I can edit that, and I can move things up and down. I can add things, so I can just add elements to the page, and I'll put, say, to-do lists on there, and I'll put those at the very end, and we'll save. Oh, sorry, we just take that one, save that one there. So if I pop back to my home page now, we'll see another element has appeared at the bottom there. This is a to-do list, which we'll come back to in just a moment. So both the design, the brand of the page, and the layout of the page are easily configurable. So what can Eric do? Well, I guess the first thing he probably wants to do is to start connecting. I'm going to imagine that he's just been on the equipment maintenance component of the training. He will probably want to start connecting either with people or with groups. So let's click and see who we've got out there. Well, he was on the course with Susan, so let's send her a connection request and just say, hi Susan. Good to meet on the equipment maintenance course. And signed Eric. And that will send a connection invitation through to Susan, which she can accept or reject, very similar to other social platforms. The other thing he may wish to do is connect with the group. And we have a list of groups here. So it looks like he's just been, as we say, just been on the equipment maintenance. And there is a group for people who are just starting to work on those areas in the workplace. And here is the group homepage, and we can see that it's got a great big picture of a coffee machine there, a bit of introduction, some joining instructions, some forums, and we'll see how these elements are created in just a moment. But for now, we just want Eric to be a member of that group, so he will share all the content and material that is produced and shared by members of that group. So he's got some connections now. We can see his groups over here. The other things he might want to do is complete his profile. So he's got a block here suggesting that there are some things he can add to enrich the description of himself that appears online. There are some other groups he may wish to join, and it looks like there's a group for everyone working in the Taranaki region, so I think we'll pop in and we'll join this group too. So he's got a group relating to the subject area and a regional group as well. Okay, the next thing he might want to do is just to start to share material and ideas and questions. And we're probably used to status updates from other platforms. In Totara Social, you've got 3 types of status update. You can post a simple descriptive status update, you can ask a question, or you can propose an idea. So Eric might want to say, okay, really enjoyed Leo's equipment maintenance course. He can attach files to this if he wishes, but then he decides who he's going to share it with. Now, he may not want to share it with all users. It doesn't want to spam everybody, so we can choose to share it either with members of particular groups. We can share it with, he can share it with his own connections, or he can share it with particular individuals. So he may want to share it just with Susan, for instance, and there she is. But I think for now we'll just share it with members of the equipment maintenance group. So yeah, he can choose to share that with any of those combinations, his connections, his groups, individuals, or individual groups. And that will then post into the activity streams of the other those people he's shared it with. He can ask a question. So he might say, he might want to ask a question about coffee machine cleaning. And the question is, what is the best cleaning fluid used for the X100 or something like that? And again, he's probably not going to share that with everyone, so we'll just share it with his connections in this case. So that coffee machine, that question will appear in the activity stream in this area of all of the people that he's shared it with. When you go through to those questions, it provides a space. I mean, it's his own question, so he probably wouldn't answer it, but anyone else seeing that will have a space here where they can post an answer, and they might put, I don't know, something like bleach, so we'll provide an answer there. But just to show you how that appears to other users. The other thing you can do is propose an idea. So what he's going to suggest is that everyone in the Taranaki region might want to get together for a social evening. So we'll do this, just anyone fancy a quiz night on the 5th of October. Now, this is something he probably only wants to share with the Taranaki group, so we'll pop that in there, we'll share that. And you'll see it's popped up, obviously popped up in his own activity stream, but that's going to appear to all other members of the Taranaki group. Now, the ideas, as people receive them, the distinction between a question and an idea is that ideas will have voting buttons. So he can vote, or other people can vote on those, on his idea, and he can conduct a poll or just generate some interest around that. Now, the other thing, of course, he can do is comment on other people's activities. So it looks like there's a blog post here. We'll pull up some more activity just down here. Quite a lot of it's his. So he can choose, for instance, to comment on something. He can say, really like the blog post. If we look down below, he can choose to share it. So if he clicks on here, he can post this into any of the other social networks that he's connected with. So there's an integration there between the Totara social platform and the other social platforms. He can also switch off, he can stop watching it, so he can choose not to receive status updates from that particular element, or he can simply just click that he likes it, much the same way that you do in Facebook. A couple of the other things that Eric can share are files. So he can contribute files and share them with other people. He's got a few uploaded there. So if we upload another one, we'll just pick a file off the drive. There we've got nutrition resources, so we'll upload that. And he can choose to share that with say, his connections, for instance, the same groups that we've had in the other items. And that's been uploaded, and those other users will get status notifications. The other thing you may wish to do is create a to-do list. So he can create a list of items that need to be checked off. So maybe he's doing a restaurant opening. And he might just share that, for instance, with the Taranaki group. And he'll add tasks to that list which can be closed or sign contract, closed or complete legal documentation. And so we've put a completion date there, a description there. It's not completed yet, so we won't mark it as completed. And I guess buy the furniture would be another thing there that you might need to do. And we need that complete by December. So purchase tables or something like that. So he can check those items off as they're completed. So we've taken a quick tour there of what a user, the typical things that a user can do. They can connect with people, they can join groups, they can post updates, those three types of status updates, the descriptive one, the question, and the idea, and they can canvass opinion using those techniques. They can comment on other people's status updates. They can share them to other social media platforms, or they can simply like them. They can also create to-do lists, and they can upload and share files as well. So let's turn our attention to some of the sort of second of our objectives, which is to build a community of interest around a particular topic, and let's see some of the techniques that we can use for that. Okay, let's move on and see how we can create a community of knowledge around a particular topic or subject area. So I'm logged on as Leo, and I'm imagining that Leo is one of our trainers, and he runs a course on menus and nutrition. So he's got a face-to-face or an e-learning course that he perhaps runs off the LMS, and what he wants to do is create some connection and encourage some collaboration amongst the trainees as they come off that training and move back into the workplace. So what I'm going to do is create a group. We're going to see how we can create a group homepage and see how we can use that group to connect and encourage collaboration between the group members. So let's just pop in there into the groups. We'll create groups, and we'll call this menus and nutrition, for instance. I can put a description in there, I'll leave that for now. We've got options in terms of membership, so we can allow it to be open, or we can require that people are approved as they join the group. There are a couple of options in there. The other interesting one we have here is we can make the group publicly viewable. So we may have groups, for instance, that we want people who are not on the platform to be able to see. Maybe customers, for instance, we've got groups relating to that. I think in this case we probably wouldn't check that, but that is certainly an option. So we'll save the group, and I think the first thing we'll probably do is create a nice home page for it. And let's just go edit group pages. And you'll see it gives us a default home page with a number of elements on it. And we've got options to shift or add to those elements. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is stick a nice picture at the top, and let's put a sort of nutritional image at the top of this one. And if I should have a picture of some vegetables, there we go. So we'll upload that. I'll give it a title, but we probably will hide the title there. We'll put that in there. So we've got a nice banner image at the top. We've got group stats here, which we probably don't want our members to see, so I'll just delete that element there. And what I'll do is I'll put a text box in there, so we'll have a bit of an introduction. And I'll say introduction. And we'll spell it properly. And we can drop some text in here. I've already got this prepared, so I'm not going to sit there and type it all, so I'll just copy that off my document there, and we'll paste that in. We probably won't allow comments on that, it's just a bit of preamble text, so we'll save that. Oh, and I think we've shifted it. So we've put the introduction at the top, we've got the image down below. I think we'll move the image above the introduction there, so we'll just pick that, drag and drop it, so that's great. Now perhaps I've done a little video, an introduction video. We can embed media. If we have it as a video file, we can embed it as an embedded media. I've actually got it as a YouTube link, so I'll just put it in as a piece of external media. I'll put it in after the introduction, and we just need the URL there, so we'll drop that in like so. And we probably don't, we've got a title there, so we probably won't need we'll just hide the title, so that the title on the video is absolutely fine. So that title, when we preview it, that title will disappear. Okay, now the other elements we've got here, we can delete or move around as required, so I'll just get rid of the group pages. Maybe I want to move the forum posts up above here, so I'll just shift that up. We can allow people to make status updates. We've got the activity stream there, so we've seen those elements on our home pages, and a list of members there. So we can embed and style that page pretty much any way we like. The other things to note are, we can simply drop HTML in there to get whatever visual effect we're looking for. We can embed PDFs, we can embed downloadable files. We can put any of the elements on there that we see on our home screen, so things like the activity stream and the status update. We can embed RSS feeds, external media as we've done, and so forth. So this home page can look pretty much as we like. So I've got a little bit of an intro video there. We've got the forum post. Let's give it a quick preview and see what it's looking like. Okay. So that's looking nice and simple. The other thing I may wish to do is just upload some files. So let's say I've got some nutrition tables that people use, so I'll put those in here, and we go right down, and we should find, yep, there we go, nutrition resources. So we'll pop that in. So we can create a library of files that, of group files if you like, that people who are in the group can share and use, and others can add to those files as well, as we'll see. So the other thing we might do is create a group forum. It creates a general discussion one by default, but let's just create a new one just to show how that's done. And we'll call it menus, or just nutrition maybe. And we'll just say description for all staff working with menus, something like that. And we've got all the moderation settings that we'd expect from a forum application, so I'm not going to go into those in too much detail, but suffice to say you can control who, for instance, can create topics, who can moderate, and so on. So we'll just drop that in there. Okay, and perhaps the last thing we might do is invite some members to join. And we know, for instance, that Susan and Eric have been have recently been on the course, so we'll just invite them to join, and they will receive invitations. So we've set a group up and we've created everything there that they will need to work in this topic area. And what we can do is we can encourage, we can say, for instance, we can get particular members of that group to work on for in this example, a menu or something like that. We'll see how that might work in just a moment. Okay. Just before we leave Leo, one other thing he may wish to do, as an expert in menus and nutritions, Leo likes to be able to communicate with wider groups. So he's going to operate a blog. So he's going to create a blog, and what we'll do is we'll create a bot blog here, and it's a new blog, and we'll call it something like nutrition blog. And this blog is for anyone interested in nutrition. Now, as with nearly everything else, he has an option to share this with all users, or with particular groups or particular individuals. I think in this particular case, this is something that he might be sharing with the whole organisation, so we'll leave that shared with all users. The other thing we can do is prevent the blog postings being shared on other social platforms like YouTube or Facebook or Twitter and so forth. I'll leave that checked so that when these postings come through, Eric or Susan or any of the other users can share them. And we can, as with all these other things, allow or disallow comments. So there is the blog. And if we go to my nutrition blog, and as Leo, I'll make a new posting on that, and maybe my topic of the week is gluten-free menus. Oops, let me spell it correctly, and I might start typing and say one of the major challenges we face when designing menus, and I would probably spell it correctly, is catering for gluten-free diets, and so on and so on, and we'll just spell check that. Oops. And as with everything, we can attach files, they're allowed comments, and so on. So there goes my blog post, and perhaps I'm blogging on that once a week or once a month or something like that. That's going out to the whole organisation. So as a trainer or a knowledge expert or a subject matter expert, I've got all sorts of options for connecting with people within the organisation who might be interested in what I've got to say. Okay, So let's go back to our users and just see how they might start to collaborate around some of these knowledge areas. Okay, so we've looked at some of the things that an individual user can do. We've looked at setting up a group around a topic of interest, Leo's Menus and Nutrition group. We'll now log back on as Eric and we'll just look at some of the opportunities this gives us to collaborate and co-create content. So I'm going to imagine that Leo has set a challenge for the group, and what he wants them to do is to develop a gluten-free, a 5-day gluten-free menu for use in the restaurant. So this is something that's both a training exercise and obviously something that we might actually use. So here we are as Eric. Just a few points before we go in. We can see that Eric's activity stream is really starting to reflect his interests, the things, the groups he's connected with and the things that he's involved in. We've got Leo's blog posts turning up here. So all of those postings that Leo's making to the whole organisation are coming through. Eric has accepted his invitation into the Menus and Nutrition group, so that's the one he's working in at the moment. So let's just pop in there as Eric, and we're on the group homepage, and we'll take a quick scan and we'll see what's going on. It looks like there's a couple of forum posts. Leo's raised a question and Eric's responded. The activity stream for the group, and this is just for the group, has got quite a bit going on in there. So the place is humming, so to speak. Let's pick up Leo's question then. What are we going to do? There's a variety of ways of doing this, but one thing we might do is create a group page. So if we create a page, we've got the same page editor we looked at before. I'm going to mix it up a little bit here just to bring out some of the other features of the page. So let's give this a title. And we'll call it our 5-day gluten-free menu. Don't need to bother with a description. And we're back in the page editor. Now what we're going to do here is just see, add a couple of options in here, see what our options are for layout. It's a 5-day menu, so we probably want the different days and different columns or rows, and I'm going to pick this layout here. So it's got a row for each day, and we've got a column for each meal, so breakfast, lunch and dinner. So let's take that one and see where that gets us. And let's, for instance, pop a title on there. Block title. And we'll say this is we'll allow comments on this because Leo's going to come. Leo's going to visit this every so often and sort of give us encouragement and comments and observations and so on. So we'll leave the comments open for this. We don't need any files. And we might make this a header actually. Let's just make it larger and put it in the center, and let's see how that looks. I'll probably want to hide the title as well. That's great. So there's our title. Now just to stress again that I'm using the absolute bare minimum formatting here. We can make this look pretty much as we like, but what I really want to show here is just some more of the options for styling, for page content, and also the collaboration that it allows us. So Eric's just kicking the thing off. And let's put let's say we've got breakfast on day 1, and we'll put that at the top of the first cell there. And this is just a little text box. And again, let's expand that. So we'll say breakfast day 1, something like that. So we'll center that. We'll make that put a heading style on that, heading level 2, for instance. I'm going to leave the comments on there. Maybe we'll switch them off for the other items in there. And this breakfast is going to be directly after. We'll put the dish breakfast. And oh, sorry, this is an image, isn't it? I'll imagine this is an egg and avocado or something like that. So we'll pick a file, and I think I may have it already loaded. There it is. So we'll just pick that. We'll drop the image in, and there we go. A lovely picture of that dish. Now the other thing we may wish to do there is to, the other thing we can embed is we might want to embed the recipe, and we can pop that in, say, as a PDF. So we've got a PDF with the recipe in there. We'll put it in there, and we'll call that recipe, and we'll pick our file, and looks like we'll have to upload it, so we'll pick that. And somewhere down here I have a file. Here we go, egg and avocado recipe, and we'll open that and upload. I don't want this to show all the time, so I'm going to make it retractable and just have it retracted by default. Oh, looks like it's put it in just a wee bit too high, so we'll shift that down. Got that underneath the image, just there. Okay, so let's have a quick nip through and see how that's starting to look. And there we go. We've got we probably want to get rid of the title. So we've got egg and avocado. We've got our recipe here. And if we expand that, it will show the PDF. So we've got the PDF there that people can download or print as required. Let's tidy that up just a little bit before we look at this. So we probably don't need the probably hide the title there. And let's take another look at that. So it's looking a bit neater there. So you can probably imagine we keep going down for each day, so we have a breakfast for each day. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Susan to work on the lunch. So Eric's doing the breakfast, so Susan's doing the lunch. Leo's going to pop in and just comment. This is a page that the whole group can see, so pretty much anyone can visit and contribute to it, and they can put comments in here. So just to illustrate that, let's nip out and let's see how this looks from Susan's point of view. Menu. I can already see this in my activity stream here. I can see Eric has created the page. So I can get to it either just by clicking on this, or I can go via the group. So if we click through here, we will see the work that Eric has done, and we'll see his breakfast there. It looks like he's actually done a bit of work on the lunch as well, which was my area. So I can, for instance, start to comment on this. We'll see that there's a comment up here. So I might just say here for lunch on day 1, add a comment. Thanks for starting the lunch, Eric. And we'll add the comment there. And we'll just go back to the page, and then I can start to work on that page myself. So I can pull up the edit here. So Eric's working on one, I'm working on the other. We can share ideas, we can share material. I have access to the group files, so the recipes and so forth. I can load up or borrow recipes from the group files that we set up earlier. I might, for instance, here, I think what we will do is just make that heading a little bit larger. So we'll go in there and save. And so on. So I have all the options available there that Eric was using beforehand. Just a couple of other points to make. When I choose to share the page, we can, as we've seen before, we can allow sharing on social networks or share with, in this case, the group. You can issue a URL to give people access to that page from outside the platform. Now this is similar to the unlisted facility in YouTube, so it will not it's a URL, it's a public URL, but it's quite hard to guess. So I mean it's semi-private if you can call it that. Okay, so we've looked at the user experience, connecting and sharing. We've looked at creating groups around topics or areas of knowledge, and we've looked at how people on the platform can share and collaborate and co-create materials and content and pages using the platform. So let's turn our attention to the second of the questions that we are concerned with, and that is how the platform fits in to our IT environment, to our learning environment, and to our social network ecosystems. Okay, so the first thing that might help us is a feature called multiple tenancy, and this allows us to separate our populations of users in a number of areas. So let's take the example of our organisation, and maybe we've got the staff working on their training and their projects and so forth. And typically that would be run by the HR department or the L&D team. And perhaps the marketing team are also want to use the platform for customers, for promotions and competition, or getting people to write their own kids menus or something like that. So if we create two tenancies, it allows us to separate the user maintenance for these two groups. And you can imagine that the users come from very different places. Staff typically would come from the payroll, and customers obviously from a website or whatever source our marketing team chooses to get them from. So we can manage them as separate populations of users. We can separate the themes, so we might have a different look and feel for the two groups, and also the page designs can be separated there. So multiple tenancy allows us to take the same platform and make it available to two very different populations. We have a feature called Totara Connect, and this is the exception to that standalone comment I made earlier. So Totara Social does have there is a feature called Totara Connect which allows Totara Social to integrate with Totara LMS to create a single sign-on. And from a user's point of view, you can imagine what you can do is create a block on your, say, your Totara LMS homepage, and let's call that block the Knowledge Cafe or the Learning Space or the Chill Cafe or the lounge or something like that, and users can just click straight through into the Totara Social platform with no requirement to sign on again. So the authentication is done against the Totara LMS users. In addition to that, what it can also do is create automatically create groups for each of our courses. So assuming we choose to do so, it will create a group in Totara Social for our courses in Totara LMS, and will join the audiences enrolled in those courses as members of the groups in Totara Social. So it integrates at those three levels. Now those aren't the only single sign-on options. There are a variety of authentications that Totara Social supports. You can take a look at the website for those. So it by no means excludes single sign-on with other applications like Moodle or indeed anything else. But Totara Connect is a very snug and easy way of connecting Totara Social to Totara LMS. So I think what starts to emerge is that you can create Totara Social as your single point of collaboration within the organisation. Most of the facilities that we've looked at things like status updates, creating pages and so forth, exist on many of the other social platforms. And for sure, we could take our menu and nutrition pages or our equipment maintenance groups and so forth, and create them in LinkedIn or in Facebook, and we could tweet about these topics and so on. But it would take a lot of organisation to do that and to keep all of that activity in one place, and to maintain that boundary between the population that we're working with in our organisation or with our organisation and the rest of the social universe, so to speak. So if we treat Totara Social as our core point of collaboration on these issues only, we can communicate outwards to the other social platforms. We saw that we can share our activity status updates to all of our social platforms. We can even include feeds from those social platforms into the pages of Totara Social. So we can have that going both ways. But if you go back to my example a moment ago, where we have this chill cafe or the lounge or the chat room or the breakout area, whatever we choose to call it, I think you can imagine that would be very hard to establish safely and securely in some of the other platforms. We have a lot of control over what we do and don't show the outside world. So there's a number of options there for ensuring that Totara Social doesn't overwhelm your users, that they are focused on the work that they need to do and can exclude the things that they do not need to do or see, and to keep them connected with the wider social network environment. I hope I've shown then, first of all, what Totara Social can do. We've seen users can connect, they can share content, and they can share conversations. We created groups for our communities of knowledge, menus and nutrition in this case, and we also got people collaborating around that that page, that menu page. So I hope I've shown you what the product can do, and I hope you can see how it can relate to tasks and projects and learning in your organisation. So just to say thank you. If you have any questions, you're welcome to get in touch with me at the address below. Our Twitter handle is there. If you want some more information about the products, the website is the web URL is there. And thank you again for your time.